What's going on, guys? Joe with Odyssey Off-Road here. Quick video. Just wanted to do a little update. As you can see, we poured some Bud Light over this Canam Renegade, and now she's nice and girly. Got some pink decals on it. All right. Got it all set up for lady drivers. But no, all joking aside, guys, this is my wife's Canam Renegade. Haven't done a video on it in a while. You've probably seen it in a couple past videos, just, with being in the garage and what have you. But just kind of want to give you a quick update what we did to it, how it's been holding up so far. It's got 388 miles on it. If you guys don't follow the channel regularly, we used to have 2 Renegades. I had one. My wife bought one. We bought them kind of at the same time. I got rid of mine. That's a story for another video. But we still have this Renegade here. It's my wife's. This is a one-trick pony for her. So she does everything with this. She goes to the dunes with it, trail rides with it, everything. So it's been a good machine for her. She really enjoys it. She had a 570 Renegade. I have videos on that in the channel from the past. She upgraded to the 1000 for the power steering and the better suspension. Now, we'll get into all that. Is the suspension really better? Yes and no. We'll get into all that. So, first things first, visually, what you see here, what we did is this company TNT Kits. We got some decals from them. All right. In nice hot pink. They make great quality decals. I'll put the link in the description of the video below. TNT Kits, guys out of Canada, does great stuff. Customizes stuff for you. Make custom graphic kits. You can get the OEM decals in different color shades. So we just went with the gray and the hot pink. All right. She's even got a little hot pink keychain, and my son made her. And then she's got Girls Get Dirty Too in pink on the back. That's not from TNT Kits. That's from Off-Road Vixens. Another kind of female clothing supplier for women riders. They make cool stuff too. Really good stuff. She likes that kind of thing. So when we first got this machine, you seen in the little intro video here, it was orange and gray, just like the how the 2022s come. She didn't like the orange at all, so she instantly knowing when she was getting it, she had a vision in her head what she wanted to do with it. My brother has a 2021 Canam Renegade, black and tan one, and it had the orange accents. It didn't have the orange accents, I'm sorry. His was all black, so he wanted the orange accents. So what we did was, when we first brought this home, we put them next to each other. We swapped the handlebars, we swapped the bumper, we swapped everything that was orange over to that machine, the B-locks on the wheels, and she got the black. So now, once we got it all, the orange taken off, took the orange decals off, we ordered up the pink decals. And she's even representing with the Odyssey Off-Road in the front. All right. So like I said, we got 388 miles on this thing right now. It's held up good. There hasn't been any issues with it. She did have a near rollover once with it. I say near rollover because it really was a rollover, but it didn't really hit the ground per se. It tipped over on her, and she kind of held it up. It's a heavy machine, so she actually ended up breaking a rib doing that, just from holding it up, trying to push it off her. I ran back, and we ended up pushing it off her. But coming down a hill descent, rutted out hill descent, didn't really go down the hill with enough momentum, and she kind of slow rolled it. It wasn't nothing crazy, so she kind of just tipped over, fell over. Bike, didn't take any damage really. She took the damage, but she was wearing riding boots, and I think that protected her leg because the bike was leaning on her leg. If she wasn't wearing riding boots, she probably would have hurt her leg, possible a broken ankle. So wear some riding boots out there, guys, when you're riding. Especially, these machines, everybody thinks you got protection, the footwells and all that stuff, but this thing's heavy. You fall, this thing lands on your leg, something like that, you're going to lose, you potentially lose a leg. You're pushing almost 800 pounds here. So, besides all the, visual effects, the hand guards too, we swapped them out with my brother. They were orange, now she has the black ones. This is actually the only damage the bike took when she tipped it over. Took a little scratch right there. We added the front and rear aluminum skid plates. So it comes with the middle one. We added the rear one and the front. And I can tell you right now, those skid plates work great. They're very thick aluminum. I've jumped this machine off on a high-speed trail, a nice, whooped out trail, and come down, and that front bash plate smashed the rock into a million pieces. so it works. And you know, it held up, so that says something. We had some good skid plates on the machines. The ground clearances aren't great on the front of them. We'll get into that here in a minute too. And I think the wind's actually starting to pick up, so what we'll do is we'll continue this video in the garage just so you guys can hear me. All right, guys, back in the garage here. It's starting to get a little windy, and you know how these cameras pick up the wind a little bit, so I didn't want to make the video sound all distorted with the wind. I want you guys to be able to hear me. So we were saying, she had a slight rollover, nothing crazy. Only damage was this here, and then other than that, what we did was the skid plates, the graphics. You'll see the seat cover also is black. We swapped that out. My brother, it had the orange on it originally. Now it's all black, so basically just black, gray, and pink. That's what she's sticking with. She wants to add a little more pink to it, actually. She wants to get the handlebars and the bead-lock rings powder-coated to match the decals, so we'll see if we end up doing that or not. Put a little rack on it. She wanted a little rack just to carry a cooler or a small bag or something like that. We usually will put a soft cooler on here, kind of just strap her down. And it works great. This is the Rough Country rack. This is very cheap. It's like inexpensive, $65, $70. Comes with two straps, so you can put anything you want on there that'll fit. And then it's got other places where you can make mounts and mount a box, a sealed dry box or something like that, if you want to put that back here instead of a cooler. But because the Renegades don't really have any storage, it's kind of the downfall of it for long trail rides. But now that I have the Grizzly, I kind of carry most of the stuff, and she just throws something small back there, bungees it down, and we have everything we need with us. But for trail riding, it's been great. She really enjoys it. She loves having the power steering. Power steering on this thing is very good. I'll say, it's got the tri-mode power steering, so I'm not going to get into too many details about what the machine has and what it doesn't have. I have videos on that on the channel. Go back in my past videos, walk around to the Renegades when we first got them. Goes over all the options. But the tri-mode power steering, she basically keeps it in the medium setting, and doesn't touch it. And then you have the 3 drive modes. When she first got it, because it was a 1000, it was a little intimidating for her. She was keeping it in eco mode. She's then kind of bumped it up to standard, and she pretty much leaves it in standard mode the whole time. She doesn't never run it in sport mode, but she runs it in standard mode the whole time. Typically, never really drops down to eco. The only time we put it in eco mode, honestly, is when moving it around the garage. We're going to back it in and stuff like that, because the throttle on these Renegade 1000s is very sudden and it hits hard. So if you have it in sport mode or standard mode, even on the blacktop here, and you want to just kind of move it a little bit, put it in eco mode, unless you want to drive through your wall or, crash into your truck. So maintenance on this thing has been the downfall of the machine, I would say. It's the biggest negative, the biggest detractor to these Renegades, the maintenance. Not that it needs a lot of maintenance, but when you do change the fluids, it's not easy. It's not an easy task. You have 4 sets of fluids to change. Unlike, say, the Grizzly or something like that, you have the engine oil, you have the transmission fluid, you have the front differential, and you have the rear differential. Now, you may be saying to yourself, Joe, what's so hard about that? Well, it's not, because you have 4 fluids to change. What makes it hard is the design of this machine hasn't been changed in years, and when they designed it, it was not well thought out for user-friendliness and doing your own maintenance. Changing the fluids is an absolute mess. An absolute mess. Unless you want to remove all the skid plates, which in and of itself is over an hour job, because the bolts don't just come in from the bottom and thread in. There's clamps on the top. There's nuts that you got to hold a wrench on. It's in between. You got to get your hands in there. There's nothing easy about working on these machines as far as that stuff goes. Everything's tight. Changing the fluids is an absolute mess. I would say the easiest one is the front diff, and the only reason that's easy is because we pre-drilled holes, I'll show you, in the skid plates to where the drain bolts are. The skid plates come with no access holes, so they expect you to remove the skid plate when you change the diff fluid, or let it just run all over and pour all over everything. And that still has to happen in the rear, and I'll show you why. So we pre-drilled the hole, so the drain plug's right here. We can kind of pop that out, let it drain. So that ends up being the simplest one right now. Even the factory skid plate that comes on there, the plastic one, has no drain hole in it. You have to drill a hole for the future, is what I suggest you do, or take it off, which is a pain in the neck every time. And they don't hold much fluid, the diffs, so you're going to kind of want to change them a little more frequently than the manual says. That's my recommendation, because they're going to get dirty. The last thing you want to do is keep continually running dirty fluid in it, and then you have to rebuild the differential at some point. So the engine oil, probably the one that's the easiest. Still makes a mess just because you got to take the cover off the oil filter, which is right there. And then that oil tends to run all the way down the machine. You can tilt the machine up on its side, but then you're not going to, after you let the oil drain out of the engine. But then again, you're not getting all the oil out. So just let it run out. It's going to make a mess. You put the new oil filter in there, you put the cap back on. Once you're all done, you can take it outside, degrease the whole machine, and hose it off. Engine oil fill will be right here. And then there is a drain hole for the engine oil drain, which is right here. It's still going to make a mess a bit. It's going to kind of get over all over the metal. There's a little metal beam kind of that comes off the main frame. You'll see the access hole right there. But it doesn't really go all the way through it. It'll catch the edges a little bit, and you do get some runoff. Then you got to take this cover off here. Let's get to the transmission fluid. Transmission fluid is a pain in the neck. Filling it, you're going to need a pump. You're not doing this with funnels. So you'll see, I don't know if you can see it, but if you guys have one, you know what I mean. See that white cap right down there? That white nut right there where my finger's pointing? I don't know if it's going to focus. But right there. Let's see if we can zoom in on it. Probably not. You're not going to see it that way. But trust me, there's a white cap down there. And it's in there. When you get that out, that's the fill. So you're going to have to pump it in with a pump and a hose, the fluid. And then the drain, again, no access. Even from the main skid plate that they supply you, there's no hole. The oil, the fluid base, we kind of reamed out a hole to make it easier. Again, you got to be innovative with some of the stuff. So you can see this hole here, we kind of drilled it out. You have a little hole in the frame, in the footwell supports that it comes through, but in this main frame, nothing. You got this little tiny little hole. So I made it bigger, so most of the fluid will come out. I say most of it because some of it still runs back here and gets all over it. It just still does make a mess. Then your biggest culprit is your rear diff fluid. There was a guy on YouTube I was watching, and he has a Canam Outlander, which is the same setup, and he couldn't even figure out how to change the rear diff fluid. And it's because unless you read the manual and see exactly where it is a tiny little bolt. It doesn't look like it should be. Let me get a flashlight on that for you. Right there is a tiny little Allen head. Right on the side of the diff there. It's very tiny. That thing, forget about it. It is an absolute mess. You'll see where being as it comes off the side, there's nowhere for the oil to go. You have your main frame here, has a metal skid, metal plate welded to it between the rails. So that's not removable regardless. There's no hole for the fluid to come out and go down. It basically just runs all over that plate. And then if you have the extra skid plate on there, it runs all the way to there. What I do is I jack up the right side of the machine to tilt it out so that you can even get all the fluid out. Because it's on the side and it's not on the bottom, you can't get all the fluid out in one clean shot. So what I'll do is I'll let it all run out, and then I'll pump some clean fluid through there to kind of flush it a little bit, because it's crazy. It's the worst design I've ever seen to drain the fluid. I don't know why they do it. So that's the biggest gripe with this machine, is changing the fluids. It's just a mess. So once you're done, just be prepared to give yourself a couple hours to let all the fluids drain out, get all this, deal with the mess and getting your hands in tight places, and then using a pump to pump all the fluids in. And then what you're going to want to do is have some degreaser handy, some simple green, nothing too harsh. And get it outside, spray it all down with some degreaser and, high pressure hose nozzle, and just, let it all sit with the degreaser on it for a little bit, and then hose it all down, because it's quite a mess. So that's really the downfall of the machine. The other thing I would say that I'm not happy with is the squeaks. It's a squeaky girl. She's noisy. The bushings just, no matter how much you grease them, go for a ride, and they come home and everything's squeaking again. So I'm not sure if we just greased it recently. Let's see if she still squeaks. What you hear now is my shoes. Yeah, hear that? That's the suspension. And most of those squeaks, I'll tell you where they come from. Right here is the stabilizer bar links. Weird design. They're not like traditional stabilizer bar links. They're like brackets. And I think they just, to be honest with you, Can-Am, a lot of their machines just know the squeak. I had a Can-Am X3, and it was noisy too. Squeaked like crazy. But the design's kind of weird. I don't know. Maybe they do things different up in Canada. But it's a weird setup. I actually loosened those bolts, pumped some grease through them, retorqued them. The squeaks were gone. Went out on one ride. Squeaks are back. The machine's got barely 400 miles on it. Shouldn't be squeaking that bad. Obviously, it's an issue. It's going to keep coming back. So it's just kind of something you're going to have to learn to live with. Or I've done a little bit of research. I can't seem to find anybody that makes better bushings for it. Some polyurethane bushings would probably help solve that. But haven't been successful in finding anything like that. If you guys know anybody that makes better bushings for the bushing kit for these machines that are a little more durable and squeak resistant, please leave a comment below and give me the information. That'd be definitely an upgrade I'd be interested in. And I would say the best attribute to this machine is the engine. These Rotax engines, that's one thing that Can-Am has going for it, I'll tell you, is the engines. Their Rotax motors are very, very good. They are pretty stout. They make a lot of power, obviously. And that's why people buy these. They're animals. They're powerhouses. This machine is got the power for days. I mean, it'll rip the handle. It's basically like, if you're a beginner and you get on this machine and you got it sport mode, it's like, getting on a bull and trying to hold on for dear life, at a rodeo. It's really that extreme, the power. It comes on hard in sport mode. So if you're a beginner, novice, if your wife's riding it, I do not recommend putting it in sport mode. I recommend leaving it in, maybe start her off in eco. My wife started off in eco mode, and then put it in, work her way up to standard mode, and you'd probably be good. Standard mode gets you through everything, gives you full power. It just doesn't come on as hard at the bottom. So, but yeah, I mean, we got some more plans for it. I want to do an exhaust on it. She doesn't really. That really doesn't concern her. She doesn't want the power, extra loudness, I should say. I want to put an exhaust on it, though, just to kind of let it breathe a little better, expel some more heat, and get it tuned. Because they do run a little bit lean from the factory, supposedly. This one doesn't seem to be as bad as the Renegade 570 she had. For some reason, that thing would burn your leg off. This thing still will run really hot, which is another reason why she does wear riding boots. Because if you don't wear riding boots, the heat that comes off of here will cook your leg. Your calf will be like a cooked turkey leg, roasted chicken, ham hock. By the time you're done riding, use whatever analogy you like. You're gonna cook your leg with a full day of trail riding with this thing. I can guarantee you, if you're not wearing some type of protective gear on your leg there. Maybe jeans seem to help a lot if you wear jeans, but boots, tall boots, really seem to be the best thing. And the shocks are a little stiff. I have them set to full soft almost. And when I say full soft, I mean high speed compression down all the way. So that will be for the big hits. Like when you hit the high speed, when you hit something hard and sudden, and it's got a sudden jerk to the suspension that forces the tire up really fast. That's what your high speed is. It's not it's got nothing to do with the speed you're traveling. That's not what the high-speed compression does. High-speed compression, when they talk about high speed, they mean the rate at which the shaft and the shock is traveling. So if it travels at a fast rate of speed because you hit something like a G-out or a rut suddenly and it has to quickly jolt up, that's the high-speed dampening. Slow speed is like if you're turning and you get a little body roll and, slight leans, slowly crawling up stuff and the shaft of the shock is moving in slowly, that's slow speed compression setting. That's the difference, okay? So I have the high speed almost all the way open in the back, and in the front I just have a quarter turn in from fully open. And that's the best way. You can ride aggressive and not bottom it out. We're not that big of people either. So if you're a really big guy, maybe you want to crank it up a little bit, but the factory settings are very stiff. And then the slow speed stuff, I have those just a quarter turn in from fully open. Significantly softer than the recommendations factory settings in the owner's manual. So it's just a little tip. If you're under 200 pounds, I would say soften it up significantly because it'll really help the ride a lot. Now, it's still a little choppy. The suspension handles better when you're really attacking it. It's set up for going fast. So if you're doing slow trail, 4x4 trails and crawling and technical trail riding, it's going to be a little herky-jerky, the suspension, because it's just not tuned that way. Now, you can send those shocks out, have them retuned. We may do that. People also put Elka shocks on here. It significantly softens them up. That's not really something that you need to spend the money on because these come with high-end shocks. So you could take those shocks off, send them to a shock company, have them revalved, resprung for your weight and riding style, and you'll have a significant difference in ride quality. Just do the research for places in your area that rebuild Fox shocks, and revalve them, and probably cost you maybe $700-800 to revalve and respring a whole set. If you're just talking about revalve, probably less, $500-600 to get them redone. If you're buying a whole new set of Elka shocks, you're talking $1,700-1,800 for stage 3 or stage 4 shocks, similar quality to the Foxes. So it's not cheap. I recommend just sending these out, have them revalved if you want to change it, which we may do. We're probably going to do an exhaust to tune just to get the heat down, maybe revalve the shocks, and definitely changing the tires. And the reason why is not that these don't really give you that great of traction. They do. They're not that bad. They do seem to be wearing a little quicker. They are a softer compound, so they wear a little faster, and they have big voids in between. So I was a little concerned about punctures, but we haven't had any yet. I run them at the recommended PSI or a little bit under, which recommended is 7. So I keep them at about that because they do have soft sidewalls, so that tends to keep the sidewall from getting pinch flats and punctures. I kind of worry about punctures with these tires. They're pretty soft. So I run them about 6.5, 7. Now, the front, even though they're 25s, front and rear, the front tires are significantly shorter than the rears. Even though they're just supposed to be narrower, they're way shorter as well. When it's parked next to the Grizzly, which has the same size tires front and back, the rears are only about 1 inch smaller than those tires on the Grizzly, and the fronts are like 2.5 inches smaller, 3 inches smaller almost. So you can see from here, the fronts are way shorter than the rears. So we're probably going to go with a little bit of a wider tire and a taller tire, just for more ground clearance. They don't really come with that big of ground clearance on these machines. You don't want to go too high either because it's another detractor to these machines. They're very top heavy and tippy. They're not as stable as, say, a Scrambler S, or even the Grizzly is more stable of a machine. Just the center of gravity, these big V-twin, the head sits up high, you got a big gas tank. For some reason, it just seems very top heavy. You sit up high on it. So what you're going to do, what I would suggest is, for protection of your rims alone and for a little extra ground clearance, is go with a set of 26s. That's probably what we're going to do. And then we'll go with 1 inch wider in the front. You'll get more rim protection. You'll see these rims are almost dead even with the edge of the tire. So you get a lot of scrapes on your beadlock rings because there's not a lot of sidewall protection. So if you go to 26 and maybe a 26x9 in the front, so 1 inch wider, you get a little bit more bulge on the sidewall. You get a little more protection on your rim. And then you'll get a little more traction in the front too. Make it a little more stable too, having a little bit of a wider front tire. That'll help with the stability. And then you'll get maybe another 1/2 inch of ground clearance. That's also a benefit. And then the back, it'll be like a 26x11. This is a 26x10. So you'll get, a little bit more there too. Back's fine. The front's really the culprit with the tires, I would say, on these machines. I know they put the skinny ones on there for turning and riding aggressively, but to me, the machine's too top heavy and tippy to turn and aggressively in corners anyway, the way it's set up. So it's not even a realistic expectation to ride it that way, if I'm being honest with you. It's not like a sport quad. You can't really shifting your weight on these machines and throwing your body weight around doesn't help as much as it does, say, riding a Raptor or something like that. It just doesn't affect it as much. Just the machine's heavy, so the machine's throwing you around. This machine is going to throw you around. You're not throwing it around. I can tell you right now, unless you're a really big guy. So to wrap it up, would I recommend it for your wife? Yes. If she needs a one-trick pony, follow you around, do everything you do. If you're some like myself, I have a Raptor, I have a Grizzly. We go out 4x4 trails, take the Grizzly. If I'm at the dunes or a fast trail run, I have the Raptor. She can use that and follow me anywhere. It'll do everything. We've had it at the sand dunes. It did great on the stock tires, aired down to like 4 PSI, floated over the sand, no problem. I was rather impressed. She did great on it. The trail riding does good. The slow technical trails is where it's got its deficiencies. Suspension is set up rather stiff for that type of stuff. But, you can send the shocks out, have them tuned. Overall, it's been a good machine. You can see the things we've done to it. I think it looks good. She loves it. She likes the pink. She thinks it's pretty, how the girls are. So, happy wife, happy life. She's in love with her machine. She takes it outside regularly, washes it herself. The only thing she don't do on herself is the maintenance. I do all that, I've already explained how difficult that is. So, and getting to the air filter. The air filter to me is just ridiculous. You take the seat off, the cap there for the air filter. You got to take this whole front plastic off, which doesn't really line up that well. I got it lined up really nice and tight here. You'll see a lot of them, there's a big gigantic gap, and that's kind of disappointing to me. For the amount of money you pay for these machines, the gaps they have on them. I have it set up nice and tight here. My brother's has a big gigantic gap. You can stick your thumb through it. So it's weird. And then you got to pull these out. And, a lot of people break tabs on them. And then you got to pry the plastic back and slide it over the shifter and past the handlebars just to get to the air filter. So, if you get past the maintenance, it's a really good machine. I do recommend it. I think the motors and stuff on these have been proven to be very reliable. Should last a very long time. Super powerful, ultra powerful, most powerful ATV on the market out of the box by far. 91 horsepower, and then rip your arms off in sport mode. I mean, it's got a ton of power. So it's got all the power you want. You can set the suspension up a little better, and you have a great machine. So that is it, guys. Thanks for tuning into this one. Just wanted to update you guys on this Can-Am. We haven't in a while. Had a few people ask if we still have it even, because they know I got rid of my Renegade. But we do still have the wife. So wife has no plans on getting rid of this thing. She loves it. Next couple of videos coming up after this are going to be, I'll maybe have one more drop, and then we're gonna have a Hatfield McCoy trip. We're gonna be at the Hatfield McCoy trails next week. So I'll have some footage coming from that. So those videos may be, in a few weeks from now. Stay tuned for those. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning into the video. Smash that like button on your way out. If you found this really helpful, there's another button you can smash below. It's called the Super Thanks button. Help the channel get going. If you want to donate a couple dollars to the channel, we putting that money, anything we get from those Super Thanks, right back into the channel for mods. Maybe do an exhaust for the wife or something else. Once we have enough funds there available for that. Thanks, guys, for checking out the videos. We're at 3,000 subscribers now. You guys rock. I appreciate you all. We'll stay tuned for another video coming up. If you like the Hatfield McCoy Trail stuff, stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't. We'll see you on the next one.